We start with breaking news, though, impacting students all across the state. New guidelines just released call for elementary and middle school students to be back fully in person next month. Good Tuesday evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Pisano.
And I'm Jordyn Jagolinzer. This news comes as COVID-19 metrics continue to improve. Western Mass News reporter Lindsay Kane is live for us in Springfield with those details. Lindsay?
Chris and Jordan, all elementary school students are now required to be back in school fully in person 5 days a week starting April 5th. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Commissioner Jeffrey Riley released a timeline for in-person learning requirements, also mandating middle school students to be back in school in person 5 days a week starting April 28th. The date for high school students to return will be released in April. Commissioner Riley says hybrid learning days and remote days will no longer count towards required learning hours. If districts do not abide by this new mandate, they will have to make up the learning time over the summer or next academic year. Districts can apply for a waiver if they have been in a fully remote model all year, but Commissioner Riley says they will have to provide a detailed timeline to bring students back 5 days a week. He also says DESE does not anticipate granting waivers for elementary school districts that are requesting because they are in the high-risk level for COVID-19. The new requirements also include a mask mandate for students and staff, 3 feet social distancing, and 6 feet social distancing during lunch. West Springfield Mayor Will Reichelt tells Western Mass News his district is currently in a hybrid learning model, but school officials are already starting to update plans to put DESE's requirements in motion.
So we are working with our principals and working with our schools to make sure we can bring that back and make it happen on April 5th. I'm hopeful that we're able to do that. I'm hopeful that we can bring our older kids back earlier too, and instead of later in April, try to bring back more students earlier in April. So we do have a school committee meeting tonight, which I do hope to have an update from the superintendent, but we are working towards that goal with the DESE guidance that was just released.
Parents can still opt out of sending their children in person and can choose a remote model for the remainder of the year. Live in Springfield, Lindsay Kane, Western Mass News.
Lizzie, thank you for that live report. If you have a child under the age of 18, you could soon get a $3,000 tax credit. That's what's proposed under the American Rescue Plan Act, which heads to a final vote in the House tomorrow in Washington.
So how do you know if you qualify for the money? Western Mass News reporter Audrey Russo is live for us in Springfield to break it all down. Audrey?
If this bill passes, parents could see an increase in the amount of money they could get as a tax credit for each child they have. Plus, parents could start getting some of these payments as early as the summer.
Hopefully the bill is passed.
David Nebar is anxiously watching Washington, hoping the latest COVID-19 stimulus bill makes its way to the president's desk. He tells Western Mass News he has a 14-year-old child and says he could benefit from the expanded child tax credit the bill proposes.
It would help a lot, especially in this pandemic that's going on. Things is real hard. It would help a lot to keep you floating, because we're sinking.
Under the legislation, the child tax credit would be expanded from $2,000 per child to $3,000 per child between the ages of 7 and 17. Parents could get $3,600 if their child is 6 or younger. The expanded credit is for parents who earn $75,000 a year or less, and $150,000 or less for joint filers. The benefit decreases as income levels rise, plateauing at $2,000 until a person earns $200,000 a year or $400,000 for joint filers.
You can get up to half of the child tax credit during the months of July through December.
Tax preparers say parents can expect installments this summer, and then the second half of the tax credit
you would receive upon filing your tax return.
For many people, this is it'll never happen moment happening.
If the bill becomes law, the expanded child tax credit would expire after a year. Congressman Richard Neal, one of the main driving forces behind this proposal, wants to make it permanent.
Putting money into the hands of the people who need it, we think, is good economic policy and good healthcare policy.
If and when the final version of the bill is passed, parents can expect more details about how they would get their payments, whether or not they choose to take a month-to-month payment or elect to take more infrequent payments of that tax credit. Live in Springfield, Audrey Russo from Western Mass News.
Audrey, thank you for that live report. The town of Hatfield is coming together to support one of their own. An 87-year-old veteran was forced out of his house because it was condemned by town authorities.
Western Mass News reporter Sarah Granelli has the story.
Packed with treasures and a lifetime of memories, George Emeny says his house was condemned by the town of Hatfield, forcing him to move out with no place to go.
My car has a seat that folds back. So I drive here, my dog sits in that seat. When I have a couple of places that are safe to park in up the road.
George tells Western Mass News he spent 3 cold winter months sleeping in his car. He says it wasn't that bad.
What I do is run the car for a little while, get the chill off, go to sleep, wake up at a certain point, and maybe start the engine, for about 10-15 minutes, shut it off just to take the chill off.
Western Mass News spoke with Charles Konecki, the public health agent for Hatfield. He says George's home isn't up to code and needs a lot of work.
The glaring situation is the fact that the dwelling is not weather tight. There needs to be major work done to reinforce or rebuild the walls of the building so that proper weather tight doors and windows can be installed.
Konecki says work is needed on the ceiling and on the first floor flooring. He adds that the house also has plumbing, electrical issues, and much more. When community members found out about George's circumstances, they jumped into action.
We're just trying to get through and assess the situation and get everything kind of cleaned out of the house so they can go in and make the repairs they need to do. And then we're going to go through the items and help George figure out what he really wants to use and wants to keep.
This is just some of the stuff volunteers are help sifting through to make sure George can move back into his home comfortably. About 20 companies have now volunteered to help with things like rewiring the house, putting in new plumbing, and adding a new roof. George says he will be forever grateful to his newfound friends.
When I saw all these people were supporting me, that's changed my life forever.
In Hatfield, Sarah Granelli, Western Mass News.
Let it go.
Yeah.
And let's hope he gets the help he certainly needs. A trailer is being given to George so he can live in it on his property for the time being. Right now, he says he's staying with a friend. There is a GoFundMe page that's set up as well. That is up on our website if you'd like to help, westernmassnews.com. The Department of Public Health releasing today's COVID-19 data. The state saying the positivity rate over the last 7 days sits at 1.74%. There have been 20 new deaths due to the coronavirus, and so far nearly 1.5 million Massachusetts residents have received a dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. There are approximately 6.8 million people who live in the Bay State. For a full look at the numbers, you can check out our free Western Mass News streaming app.
Well, temperatures this afternoon managed to hit upper 50s across the lower valley. We hit a high of 57 in Springfield this afternoon. However, spots in the Berkshires, low 50s to even mid 40s. So it was a cooler day in the high terrain, and we all had the gusty breezes. But with the sunshine in the 50s, that is definitely a nice change. Now, we've got 47 degrees at present here in Springfield. Looking out on the horizon, you can see a little bit of color, but the sun is down, and temperatures will continue to cool off quickly tonight, and wind will also continue to lighten. So temps right now are almost into the 30s already for the higher elevations, the hill towns, and the Connecticut River Valley is still middle to upper 40s, so there's a big difference still. Now, wind is at about 5 to 15 miles an hour, but should eventually become calm overnight tonight. And with that, we'll end up losing the wind chill, which right now is in the mid 30s for Pittsfield and low 40s for the valley. And our actual temperature will drop off back to the lower and middle 20s. So we've got clear skies now. We'll keep that through morning, about 20 to 26 degrees depending on your location. Might get a little frosty out there as well. And then the bus stop forecast for tomorrow, like winter to start the day and then spring to wrap it up. Temperatures in the early morning, lower 20s with sunshine, and then by the afternoon, light breeze, sunshine, and middle to upper 50s. It gets even warmer through the end of the week. I'll have that forecast in just a few minutes. Back to you.
New at 6, Westfield police are asking for your help finding this man. Take a look at your screen. Matt Koulis was last seen on March 1st. Matt is currently homeless and known to stay in the area of the National Guard Bridge. His family says his cell phone has been off for several days and they're worried. He's about 5'6" with short brown hair. If anyone sees him or has any information on his whereabouts, you're asked to call Westfield Police.
A Holyoke police officer says he's now suspended after posting a video on social media claiming there's corruption inside the police department. This YouTube video was posted early Sunday morning, and so far it has 30,000 views. Rafael Roca is a former Marine, and then he joined the Holyoke Police Department in 2015. He tells Western Mass News the corruption inside that department has been happening for a long time.
For years, there has been theft of overtime, especially when it comes to federal grants that are used to patrol the city. There are people that haven't shown up for shifts that have gotten paid for it.
Roca says there's now an internal investigation open inside the department. We did reach out to the mayor's office to see if there will be a separate investigation into his claims, but we've not yet heard back.
A follow-up now to a story that Western Mass News brought you just last week. The family of a missing Amherst student has been denied their request for a historic marker. The director of New Hampshire's Historic Resources Department says the proposal for Maura Murray's marker failed because the case is less than 50 years old. They also say the state's Department of Transportation found the location unsuitable for a historic marker. The family made their request out of concern that the tree on Route 112, which served as a memorial marking her disappearance, might be cut down, which it was just last week. We'll have more from her family coming up tonight on Western Mass News 11 at 11.